what's different in the way that people plan and manage a project in a traditional approach? So the traditional approach is actually based on the thinking of divide and conquer. I mean, that sounds okay, doesn't it? If you have a big problem, we try to reduce the problem into small problems, and we want to tackle each problem separately. The idea is actually not wrong, but it's actually how it's executed, which is the problem. Let's say on the top of the food chain, right? So you have the guys from leadership. Well, they do the big thinking, right? So this is like, okay, we do a lot of thinking and we build a plan. So you have a plan that will be executed by other guys, right? Maybe some managers, right? And in the very end, this is a plan, and these guys then in turn are responsible for putting work to other people. So you have this kind of plan that actually represents this kind of hierarchical structure. How is that thinking working? Well, the idea is that you have this plan to create this big product. Let's say it represents what we want to do in the project. That's the thing. Let's break down this big thing into 4 smaller things, right? And then it will be broken down in even smaller things. So we have these small pieces. It's each small piece of your plan will be distributed to some guy working on it. So the thing is, this actually works well. It can work, especially for certain type of problems. And it reflects the engineering thinking. So, and this is an approach which is really successful in areas like for building houses, right? For building bridges, for building things like machines. And the problem only is, it only works for certain kinds of problems. We have the illusion that we can use this approach for any kind of problem. But where it actually works is for complicated things, right? So this is possible. This kind of problems, they can be solved, but these are the kind of problems where you have one predictable solution, right? So that's the mindset of traditional management. And it sounds okay, doesn't it? Right? But then we discover that certain things just don't work. So maybe someone can someone tell me a software product, a very successful software product, maybe some internet app, something. Can you name me one?
YouTube.
YouTube. But let me ask you a question, Shwaita. Do you think YouTube has been planned?
No, actually, they had a totally different plan. They were not. They were trying to be like an interaction app, and it ended up to be something different.
So if I recall, it was an online dating app, something
Online
like that.
dating app. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Online dating app.
Actually, you could name any big software product that you find, and that's it. That's a huge success currently, and you can bet on it that it's not the way it has been planned. So here we have to talk about evolution. So and this is also the focus that I want to have for this conversation. We need a different approach to management, a different approach to solving problems. And how do we as developers fit into that big picture? So I found this really interesting citation of a guy called Gell. So if you have something complex and it works and it's fantastic, it gives you value, then you can be sure that it's the product of an evolution. So maybe if you take the example of YouTube. So YouTube, as it is as a complex product, and I'm sure it is complex, right? It started as a small thing. It started maybe as like this dating app, right? And it evolved into something more. So a complex system designed from scratch never works. So because if you look at this approach, well, the idea is you take a big thing, you break it down into small parts, right? And after breaking it down and building all the small parts, you go here and you assemble them again, right? You take that piece plus that piece, you put them all together. Right. So how could we do this another way? So Gell talks about evolution. So, and this is and this is how we have to understand how a complex product evolves, right? So you start with a small thing and you make sure that it works, right? So it should be something valuable, running. It should be running. It should be something. It should not be a plan. It should not be like a Gantt diagram or something like that. No, it should be really something usable. And then you say, okay, it's a small thing, it's working. Now let's evolve this. Let's put another layer of functionality on top of it. And you create the next version. And here we go. We're adding a next layer of functionality on top of it. And we make sure it's running. It also works. And then again, okay, what's the next step? And again and again. So this is how evolution works. This is how nature works. Let's call it an organic approach. Okay, that very first version, it will have a small plan. This is my personal symbol for a small plan, right? So this is an objective, right? And this is have you heard of OKRs? Objectives.
Results.
Exactly. So the kind of plan that we do in Agile, it's kind of like that. You can stack these small objectives and you say, okay, let's put them in a list. And we start with the most important one. And this makes plans very different. So in Agile planning, we distinguish these objectives, right? And we call them the what plan. That's the what part. What do we need? If we compare this now, if you look at the traditional approach, you have the big upfront plan, and you have a guy, a project manager, someone taking responsibility for that plan, right? To deliver something. So here we have our developers, and based on this plan, we have our someone assigning these pieces of work. The communication is very specific and directed. So product manager assigns these work and expects feedback from you. So that's the traditional approach. If we compare this with the evolutionary approach, how does that work? Well, basically, we don't have this plan. We have a team, and we have this kind of plan we have this list of goals. And the approach is not, as we have seen, it's not linear from A to B. It's evolutionary. So evolution means, well, we are working in cycles. We have the same approach happening all the time. And we are not working towards only just delivery. We are working towards what we consider, we need to understand what is success. So, and how does this evolutionary delivery work? Well, in each cycle, we have to deliver something that works, right? Something small. It might be small, not a problem, right? Let's be realistic. We are not able to deliver the big thing in one go, of course not. So we deliver something small. You know what we said, right? We something that is valuable, that is complex, well, it evolved from something more simple. And that's how it actually works. So we have something simple, and then we iterate. So, and with each iteration, that small thing starts to become more and more complex. We have to leverage everybody's brain. So here, the first approach, we have one big brain. That's one person doing the most important thinking. But this is limited to a certain extent. Let's not have that bottleneck of one person doing the thinking and the coordination. Let people coordinate themselves. So if we look at Scrum, how does the Scrum framework work? So you have this one big list, and we have already seen that each item it's like a small goal, right? And we have our dear product owner. The product owner is responsible for keeping to manage this wish list, right? And to keep it in a nice order, right? All right. And we also know that we have our team here, right? These are the guys that are able to turn ideas into something of value. We are working in sprints, right? So what are sprints? We're talking cycles of work. So, and it can be any interval up to 1 month. But once you have defined the interval, it stays constant. Well, in the very beginning, we have this one meeting, right? And what we do in that meeting, we have a discussion. And the product owner, right? So here we have that guy, the product owner. The product owner says, guys, the most important thing is that goal here. We need to be able to deliver on a certain goal, right? So what can we achieve during the 2 weeks? For example, in our case, it's 2 weeks. So they discuss, and then they select items. And the challenge is that we cannot use the divide and conquer approach. You cannot just take an item like this one and say, okay, we're going to cut this into 4 pieces, and that's it. And I always challenge my students. I ask them, guys, so how do you make a big elephant? How do you split a big elephant? Would you cut the elephant in pieces to deliver the pieces? I mean, it sounds like I'm pulling your leg, right? But the idea is you split an elephant by making a big elephant turn into lots of small elephants. And one of the challenges is, if we want to be able to deliver value each sprint, we have to make sure that it's actually deliverable. It has to be with good enough quality. And this is why we also have, and this is really a concern for us as developers, we have to be concerned with quality. So we want to make sure that people delivering the product take the responsibility. So we have this joint collaborative approach to quality. And that means also that we need new approaches. So we don't want just to find bugs, because that's expensive. We want to prevent bugs as much as possible.